Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales of Fae and Folklore. I have a very special guest today named Andrea Grant. She's the author of Modern Natives. Hello, Andrea, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm a huge fan of folklore, which is basically stories that have been passed down orally from generation to generation. The thing that makes me so fascinated by these stories is that in each of them there is some truth. It is that possible truth in a history that makes them so exciting and the different cultural backgrounds that they come from. Now, Andrea, I know that your stories and writing are influenced greatly by your ancestors, the Coast Salish people, and the
hmm
knowledge passed down in their stories, dances, and songs. Could you tell us a little bit about this and your inspiration?
Yeah, there was a point where I'd had, had known some relatives. Obviously, my father was a shaman and very gifted in storytelling and folklore and art, and taught me a lot of things. But I think it was 2019, I went on a quest. Where my tribe is from is in the Pacific Northwest of Canada, and this tiny island, and I think 300 inhabitants. So you're not allowed to just go there. You take a ferry there, which you're already taking a ferry to the Vancouver Island region. But yeah, I got permission, and the communications manager was this wonderful man named Joey Carroll, and he was trying to help trace some more of our family roots and give me a connection point. And he liked this book that I wrote, which is a graphic novel called Minx, where the character is like half native, leaves her tribe to go to New York City and has all sorts of adventures. So he said, I think it's your job to take some of our archival material and lesser known myths and do something creative with them so that they're preserved, from an oral history into a typewritten form, but that didn't embody all of the ideas. I guess early typewriters and the way
Yeah.
people wrote was a little bit different. But he sent me with a stack of thick binders, and it was just such a gift and so amazing. And I refer to those a lot because they talk about, how to make it rain. There's rain dance rituals and how you would do a dance to bring on the rain, and a lot of transformation myths. So humans turning into killer whales or other animal spirits to protect themselves and the tribe. And I've always loved mythology and fairy tales. I've always been an avid reader.
Me too.
Everything I could get my hands on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Grimms, I think, are where you start when you're a kid.
Oh, yeah. Definitely the Brothers Grimm for sure.
Yes.
That's amazing. That must have been such an honor, too, for them to gift you with that knowledge to share.
It really was. And it was a validation. It was like, all right, we have a good feeling about you carrying on this work, and we trust you. And if you want to run anything by us, here's who you talk to. I always try to keep like a cultural advisor from the tribe. Like, does this sound accurate? Is this a story that you remember?
Yeah.
And they've just always given me the go ahead, which is really amazing. But what a gift. Yeah.
That's awesome. And the good sense of community, too, right? Like, they've welcomed you in. They're trusting you with the secrets that you get to share.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
then what's also cool is they'll also tell me what secrets not to share, because there's a lot of mystery within Native culture and a lot of things you're not supposed to tell anybody, which is interesting too.
Yeah.
Because
Now I'm super
how do you
curious.
hint?
Yeah.
You can hint to the secret. You can't tell the secret.
Okay. You can just drop little breadcrumbs.
Exactly.
Excellent. In Modern Natives, the stories you tell are beautiful. They're connected to nature, the spirits, art, and wisdom, and I really enjoyed reading them, as I've told you. I also noticed some parallels in the tale of the Coyote Dances with Destiny.
Mhm.
The story about his wife Cordelia is similar to the story of Orpheus and Eurydice from Greek mythology. Was that intentional, or is it just coincidence that the stories are somewhat similar?
Well, I did a lot of research because I always pictured Coyote as this half man, half creature who could be walking around and he could transform his will. But I thought, what about now in the digital age? Like, how relevant is a trickster? What would he be doing? What would he be worried about? The Nez Perce tribe, actually, one of their coyote myths has him losing his first wife. And it is extremely similar to the Greek myths. And I found that fascinating. If you look at a lot of myths, like the flood myth, every culture seems to have a version.
That's what I was thinking about. It's interesting how you can find the same stories in multiple cultures, which makes me so curious about where it originated from. Like, was there some truth? Like, where did this come from and how did it change over the generations?
Mm, yeah. And of course he doesn't sing like Orpheus, or it's not him visiting the underworld, it's him visiting this like camp or something where all the ancestors are and reuniting with people.
I loved that he got to see all of the spirits of the people who have passed on and he got to spend time with them. I was also interested because I've heard of trickster myths before, but I didn't know that there were so many different versions. Because there's the coyote,
Mhm.
and then is it the raven or a crow?
It's the raven, but the raven can sometimes be interpreted as a crow, but it's technically a raven.
Right, very interesting.
Interesting how like he's coyotes like as a trickster, he's such an opposition of himself. Like he's good, then he's like mischievous. He's got this tremendous duality,
Yes,
which you don't really see with Raven. You see Raven stealing the moon and doing things like that are very deliberate and not having, I don't think, the same voice. Coyote seems like accessible to us in a different way.
it seems like he means well. It's just that's his position, so he carries it out. I also really liked the Isle of Women, and I think it's important to draw attention to what has happened and continues to happen to these young girls. And I've always loved a good story of vengeance and justice, of course. And these women shape-shifting into their spirit animals to save a young girl was very heartwarming. It's just a lovely story, and I think many women will love it. My question is, do you believe in spirit animals? And do you know
I
which one is yours?
Oh, well, yes, I do. Um, I have wolf and then I have raven. You often have two.
Oh, okay.
So the wolf would be more characteristics are obviously running solo or running with a pack and having foresight, if you will. And then raven is that little bit of trickster. So I always think sometimes I feel that energy if I'm writing something and the character gets a little diabolical or has like something to say.
A little saucy.
Yes, exactly.
I actually wondered if yours was the wolf because I noticed it mentioned in a few of your stories. So I was like, oh, I wonder
Yeah.
if there's some connection there.
Wolves touch me in different ways, whether like spiritually or whether it's I grew up with a dog that was half German Shepherd, half wolf. So they've always
I like
been in my life somehow. There
beautiful
they are.
animals for sure. A few years ago, I was trying to find out what my spirit animal was when I was living in Canada. And I did this thing that I read in a book where they said, before you go to sleep, 7 times in a row, say, I will dream of my spirit animal. I'll dream of my spirit animal. I'll dream of my spirit animal. So I dreamt of a cardinal.
Oh,
Yeah, and it was very random because it was the last thing I would think. That would be my spirit animal. And then I know that it can change or there can be more than one. And I'm living in Europe now, and I tried to do the same thing, and I dreamt of this little red fox. And I see them
Oh.
everywhere here now. So every time I see one, I get so happy. I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
hi, thanks for visiting.
Yeah, they totally will make an appearance.
Yeah, yes. I feel like once I knew, I was seeing them everywhere. So it was always like a nice little happy surprise.
Yeah, that's very cool.
All right, Andrea, I think you have something prepared for us, a little treat from your book, Modern Natives, that you would like to read.
I'm so excited to read this, actually.
I'm excited too.
People always say, "What's your favorite story?" And it's hard to say, they're all different. But this is called Coyote Dances with Destiny. And so it's really about two archetypes coming together and colliding like from different realms in a way, but also about Coyote's history. Despite the tales he heard about himself, Coyote knew he was as real as it gets. Everything from being part man and part beast to being only a symbol passed down from generation to generation to help humankind fight their demons. In a book he once read this about himself: Native American tricksters like Coyote were originally hunter-gatherer deities, kicked out of heaven by the better behaved gods and goddesses. He is cunning and sly, the wise man who acts like a fool. His very nature is contradictory because he is a bringer of both chaos and order. He is sometimes considered evil, but a necessary evil. Yet with all his enormous power, he is the epitome of personification of human absurdity. Even though the term trickster held a negative connotation, Coyote found it profound to be an archetype, especially one associated with life and creation. He had been through a lot in his existence, warring and allying with other spirit animals in an attempt to transform the earth and help humans evolve. Whether the stories about him were accurate or not, he liked the attention, feeling as though these tales kept him relevant as the generations passed. None of the tales he collected about himself reflected his deep loneliness. While he had been warring and allying with other spirit animals to transform the earth and help its inhabitants evolve, he had taken wives and fathered sons. He had also found friends. In his experience, family was whom you were stuck with, while friends were whom you decided to evolve with. He had had a fleeting relationship with Badger. It was true that they were sometimes competitive friends, but they had discovered a partnership through hunting. Being fast and agile, Coyote chased the prey until it was caught or dove into a burrow. Since Coyote couldn't dig well, Badger would use his tough claws and powerful arms to tear into the burrow. If the prey escaped, Coyote would be watching and waiting to pounce. The last he had heard, Badger had moved down to Mexico, preferring the year-round warmth. Fox had been a friend, but they had become an enemy over the years. Thunderbird and Eagle had grown distant as they constantly sought to fly close to the Creator. When it came to water spirits like Killer Whale, Coyote just couldn't relate. Who could say anything that profound with a mouthful of ocean? He had tried to become close with humans, but found it impossible to form lasting bonds with them. They could never understand an immortal. Coyote didn't have a lot of friends left these days. Hanging out at dive bars made him feel less isolated. He would eavesdrop on other people's conversations and feel reassured whenever his name came up. Humans were generally absurd, Coyote felt. If some of their stories about him mirrored qualities, like evil, that they didn't necessarily want to see in themselves, that was on them. Coyote couldn't control every story that was told about him. He thought the best story ever told about himself was Coyote and the Origin of Death. In the beginning, people did not die. Earth soon became overpopulated. The chiefs gathered to decide what to do. One chief said it might be a good idea if people died for a while. Before too much time passed, they would then return to their families. It would be like taking turns, he said, to free up some space. But Coyote believed that temporary death was too complicated, so he reasoned instead that people should die forever. Who was going to figure out how long people should stay dead before coming back? He asked. It's going to start a lot of arguments. Besides, he added, if everyone who died returned, there wouldn't be enough food to sustain all of us. Our resources are already limited. The chiefs objected. They thought the profound grief of losing a loved one forever was worse than a lack of food and supplies. They asked their medicine men to build a grass hut facing the east. When it was ready, they called the tribe together to tell everyone the dead would be brought back to the medicine house through the power of a magical song. Soon, a member of the tribe died. The medicine men assembled in the grass hut to sing. 10 days later, a whirlwind carrying the man's spirit blew from the west. Coyote felt its approach. As it was about to enter the hut, he closed the door. The whirlwind clearing the man's spirit continued journeying eastward. By doing this, Coyote made death eternal. When he saw what he had done, he became afraid of the pain he would cause and ran away, escaping from one place to another, always looking over his shoulder to see if anyone was chasing him. Now, when a whirlwind passes by, people say the spirits of the dead are roaming over the land, seeking a place to rest until they discover the road to the spirit land. In truth, Coyote had never been banished. It didn't take long for the tribe to realize he was right, and the dead needed to stay dead. Tonight, Coyote was in Tacoma, Washington, at a dive bar with a live blues band playing. The band was pretty good, but that wasn't why he chose the bar. It was because of her, the strange, striking blonde with gray eyes who had shown up the last time he visited. She had left such an impression that he remembered her warm vanilla fragrance, the lilting tone of her voice, and the way she seemed to accurately read his soul. He had been sitting at the middle of the horseshoe-shaped bar when she first approached him. Whiskey, neat, he told the bartender. Gin and tonic, a woman's voice chimed in. She caught him off guard. He was surprised he hadn't sensed her approach, which was unusual for him. Hey, Coyote, she said confidently. I've been wanting to meet you. Excuse me? He had never seen her before. There are a lot of stories about you that I find fascinating. Coyote shrugged nonchalantly. Yeah, so? One story says that when the great chief saw the natives were being preyed upon and killed by white men trying to steal their land, he set you to put things in order. He granted you great magical power, wisdom, and cunning so you could surmount all obstacles and transform evil beings. I like to think I possessed some of those qualities before that, Coyote interjected, taking a sip of whiskey. What's your point? I'd like to hear something about you that hasn't been written down anywhere. What's your name? He asked her. Her eyes sparkled as though she was about to reveal a secret. They call me Destiny. He wondered who they were. Did they call her Destiny because she controlled specific outcomes? Or was she one of the fates? Her eyes weren't just gray. They held a glint of silver, not unlike the glow of the moon. Her hair wasn't blonde. It was a blue-tinged platinum that was striking against her ageless face. Destiny also seemed tall, built like a brick wall, he thought. He decided she must be supernatural, like himself. Tell you what, he said, the band's playing my favorite song. Dance with me and I'll trade you a story for the favor. Deal, she agreed. I love stories. He took her hand, led her toward the front of the room, and took her in his arms. I don't mean a lot of archetypes, Destiny said. I mean in terms of archetypes who represent universal patterns and images that are part of the collective unconscious. It's not talked about as thoroughly nowadays. But did you know psychologist Carl Jung saw the trickster as an archetype that embodies all our darker character traits? He believed he appears to remind us we must experience our full range of behaviors and emotions to be free. You're important, Coyote. Coyote paused. I'm familiar with Jung, but I have yet to hear about that theory. Besides, many people mix my so-called trickster stories up with ravens. It's annoying. I mean, how can you even compare the accomplishments of a bird with the monumental tasks that I have accomplished? Jung did say that Coyote is a forerunner of the savior archetype, a divine being of sorts. Aren't we all divine beings? Coyote spun Destiny around the dance floor a few times. He was pleased to find that her movements were graceful and that she could keep up with him. That depends, she said. Do you believe in fate? Coyote thought about how it had been a long time since anyone had taken this much of an interest in him. He used to be a part of everyday society, traveling through the tribes on a regular schedule to perform his obligations. I'll tell you a story about me that went awry, he offered. A neighbor of mine, Silver Fox, was a talented carver and painter. He was one of the best artists around. His most impressive work was an interpretation of Thunderbird. One night he gathered some twigs together and, working until sunrise, whittled them down nicely. The finished sticks would animate themselves and become refined, high-class people, while the shavings would become common folk with blurred faces. Silver Fox sent these creations away when they came alive, some in one direction and others in another. Then they held a feast to celebrate the creation. Who's they? Wolf, bear, eagle, the other animal spirits, Coyote said. My peers, whom you refer to as archetypes. They may have powers, but they're different from you, Destiny insisted. You're like the right hand of God himself. Coyote laughed cynically. I don't know about that, although I am gifted with the power of creation. Some say I was envious of Silver Fox's abilities, and I admit that for a time I copied what he did. By sunset, the sticks and the shavings I made also became living people. As soon as this happened, a rumor began that I ran after some of the women. After a good chase, I caught hold of the prettiest ones, sure. I just wanted to take inventory of my work, but when I touched them, they turned back into sticks and shavings. They were impermanent. Destiny grew increasingly silent in his arms as they danced. He began worrying that he was revealing too much. I don't think you're just another skirt chaser, she said after a while. You seem to think things through too much to be that impetuous. You seem to be trying to know everything about me. It's my job to keep track of these things, she said cryptically. When the song ended, they sat back down at the bar. Coyote tried to recall whether he had heard any stories about destiny. Of course, destiny was referred to when humans talked about what was or was not meant to be. But he thought he would have remembered specific stories about a silver-haired, gray-eyed beauty with a sing-song voice. How come we've never met before? Coyote asked. We did briefly at the beginning of things. You were different then, hopeful and distracted by endless possibilities. Destiny looked sad. How do I seem now? Burnt out, like you've seen too much and lost too many people close to you. Coyote shrugged. Who hasn't? You also seem worried about becoming irrelevant or forgotten, and you're always racing to catch up. Of course I don't want to be forgotten. That's why I'm thinking about signing up for Instagram. You should. Some fools seem to have reserved the name Coyote, but don't even post to the account. And if you search for variations on Coyote, you either turn up upcountry blues bands, hipster bars, or some guy with over 500,000 followers selling kitschy wildness adventure kits. How am I supposed to set myself apart as a legitimate coyote? You're not the only one who's frustrated. Most gods, goddesses, and deities who draw their power from being summoned by humans find it hard to get proper adulation in the digital age. People are more concerned with celebrity gossip than with honoring those of us who are behind the curtain, shaping the day-to-day reality as they know it. What part do you play in all this? Coyote asked her. She sighed. My name gets thrown around by people often in dire situations or when they want to make a dramatic statement. Like when the poet Pablo Neruda said, "It is my destiny to love and say goodbye." I imagine that you're referenced fairly often. Yes, but not the same way as before the 20th century. Honestly, all of the new agey self-help books that brainwash people into believing they can create their own reality have diminished my relevance. I think you're more relevant than you realize, Ido said, admiring. Destiny looked at her watch with a sudden sense of urgency. I have to go. I'm late for an appointment. To be continued another time. She rushed off before he could ask for her phone number or when he could expect to see her again. Coyote had a lot of patience. From his position in the middle of the horseshoe-shaped bar, he could see his reflection in the mirror behind the colorful liquor bottles. He thought that with time his features had sharpened and his eyes had narrowed into an expression of wisdom. But otherwise, he was as good-looking as ever. It was his spirit that had shifted after the loss of his most beloved wife, Cordelia, a daughter of the sea. She was, by turns, tempestuous and quietly powerful. She surrounded him with love so vast that he was fully engaged in her presence and became the best version of himself. They were dwelling amongst the Nez Perce people when his wife became ill and died, leaving him so lonely that he wept for her day and night. The death spirit came to him and said, Coyote, do you pine for your wife? Yes, I long for her painfully, he replied. I could take you to the place where your wife is gone, but you must do everything exactly as I say. Don't disregard my commands and do something reckless. Yes, replied Coyote, anything. I promise that I'll listen to you. They began their journey, and the death spirit said again, you must do whatever I say. Do not disobey. Why would I? Coyote said. He was annoyed at being reminded again, especially when he admitted just how much he was mourning for his dead wife. As they walked along together, Coyote realized he could not see the spirit clearly. There appeared to be only a vague shadow moving beside him. They went over a plain. There are so many horses it looks like a roundup, said the spirit. Yes, replied Coyote, although he saw nothing. So many horses. They arrived near the realm of the dead. The spirit knew Coyote couldn't see anything, but he said, Oh, look, there are so many berries at the side of the road. Let's pick some. When you see me reach up, you'll also reach up. When I bend the branches down, you'll also pull your hands down. Coyote thought he was crazy, but compiled and carefully imitated every action. He even copied the spirit when he put his hand to and from his mouth to eat the berries. These are wonderful berries, commented the spirit. Sure, Coyote pretended to agree. Now can we go? And on they went until they arrived at an enormous longhouse. "Your wife is in there somewhere," said the spirit. "Wait here and let me find out where she is." Eventually, the death spirit returned and said to Coyote, "They told me where Cordelia is. We're approaching a door through which we'll enter another realm. You must do everything exactly the way you see me do it. I'll take hold of the door flap, raise it, and enter. Then you'll take hold of the door flap and do the same." They proceeded in this manner to enter the longhouse of the Shadow People. Coyote's wife was sitting right near the entrance. His heart began to pound like a drumbeat in his chest. The spirit instructed Coyote to sit beside Cordelia and told her to prepare a feast for them. Coyote faintly heard her response in a low, suffocated-sounding voice. Yes, of course, he'd had a long journey. Coyote still couldn't see much except that he was sitting on an open prairie. He could certainly feel the presence of a shadow beside him. When Cordelia served the food, the spirit reached down and brought his hand to his mouth. Again, Coyote imitated all the movements of his companion. When they had finished, the spirit said to Coyote, "Our conditions are different from the ones you have in the land of the living. When it gets dark here, it's dawn in your land. When it's dawn here, it's growing dark for you." The sky blackened and Coyote heard people whispering all around him. Fires were burning throughout the longhouse. The darker it got, the more he could make out the faces of the people with shadow-like forms. He was suddenly able to see Cordelia, as well as all his loved ones who had died long ago. He was overjoyed and enthusiastically greeted them. He walked down the aisles between the fires, catching up with everyone all through the night. Now he could see the doorway where he and the spirit had entered. Finally, at the edge of dawn, the death spirit came to him and said, "Coyote, our night's vanishing, and in a while you won't see us anymore. But you can't go anywhere. Stay right here. Tomorrow evening you'll see your loved ones again." "Where else would I go? I'm happy here. I'll wait." Morning came and Coyote found himself alone again in the prairie. He spent several days there. He was parched and suffering from the heat, but partook in the longhouse's merriment every night. The spirit came to him and said, "Tomorrow you'll go home and take your wife with you." "But I'm having such a great time," Coyote objected. "I understand," the spirit replied. "Nevertheless, you'll leave tomorrow. When you leave, you must guard against your inclination towards Tusulaquilum and not do anything foolish. There are 5 mountains, and you'll travel for 5 days. Your wife will be with you. You may talk to her, but you must never touch her. Do not let any impulses overtake you. Only after you've crossed and descended from the 5th mountain may you finally take her hand and embrace her." "I promise," said Coyote. When dawn came again, Coyote and Cordelia started on their journey. At first, it seemed as if he were traveling alone. He was only dimly aware of his wife's presence as she walked behind him. After crossing one mountain, Coyote could more definitely feel the presence of his wife, which now seemed more like a burgeoning shadow than a mere essence. They went on and crossed the 2nd mountain. At night, they camped in a little conical lodge, which they would carefully set up. Coyote's wife would sit on one side of the fire in the lodge, and he would sit on the other. Her form appeared more precise and more apparent as time went on. She didn't speak much, but when she did, it was in that same faint, strangulated voice. "I didn't mean to leave you," she said. "I loved you so much that I never thought death could separate us," Coyote said ruefully. "But here we are, and we have another chance. This is a gift." Meanwhile, the death spirit counted the days and estimated the distance Coyote and his wife had covered. I sincerely hope that he'll do everything right and take his wife through to the world beyond, he kept saying to himself. But he was worried because Coyote wasn't known for playing by the rules. The fourth night was the last that Coyote and his wife would be camping under the stars. Tomorrow she would once again assume entirely the character of a living person. Coyote could see Cordelia now, as she sat up opposite him, and it was almost as if she were alive again. He was glad to know that she was as beautiful as ever, the way she was before she got sick, with caramel-colored eyes thickly starred by long lashes and waist-length black hair. But he only looked and dared not touch her. Unfortunately, Coyote could not always control his actions. His heart overtook his logic in a fever dream state. The relief of having Cordelia alive and well again overwhelmed him. He jumped up and rushed over to embrace her. She cried out, "Stop! Stop, Coyote! Do not touch me! Stop it!" But her warning had no effect. Just as he touched her, she vanished and instantly returned to the Shadowland. His heart broke like a shattered mirror. This time it would never recover. When the Death Spirit learned of Coyote's folly, he became furious and appeared at the scene. He no longer seemed like a friendly spirit. In fact, he was vicious and terrifying. "I told you not to do anything foolish. You, Coyote, were about to establish the practice of returning from death. This goes beyond just your wife. You have effectively ruined everything for all of your loved ones who plan to join you in the living world." Coyote wept and wept, but he held on to some hope. He decided he would return to the longhouse. He started to head back the following morning. As he went along, he began to recognize the places where he and the Death Spirit had passed. He found the area where the spirit had seen the horses, and now he began to mimic the same things that they had done on their way to the Shadowland. "Oh, look at the horses. It looks like a roundup," he pantomimed. Coyote finally arrived at the place where the longhouse had stood. He repeated to himself, "Now when I take hold of the door flap and raise it, you must do the same." Coyote remembered all the things the spirit had done and repeated them. He sat down in the same spot where he had sat before. Darkness fell. Coyote listened for the voices and looked all around, but nothing happened, and there were no shadow people. Coyote waited all night, but the longhouse and the Death Spirit never reappeared. Cordelia was lost to him forever. Decades later, he still couldn't shake that feeling of terrible regret and futile waiting. He considered that event the greatest tragedy in his life, causing most of his lightheartedness of spirit to evaporate. He felt worn out, like he'd lost hope and was simply existing, forcing himself to go through the motions because he was expected to. He came out of his reverie and ordered another whiskey from the bartender, looking at himself again in the mirror. His eyes were bloodshot, as they always were when he thought about losing his wife. "What do I have left to offer anyone?" he thought. He looked down at his wrist. He had recently bought a silver bracelet in Seattle that a native jewelry designer had made. It had a coyote face etched upon it. He regarded it as physical proof that he still mattered to people. But he was tired of conjuring worship from ceremonial dancers. Scouring social media to see if the Trickster rating was receiving more accolades than he was, and trying so hard to regain his former glory days. Was this what his life would be? Traveling around to pass the time, alternating between staying in hotels and camping in the mountains of the Northwest, stopping at the occasional dive bar to fake a social life? The darker his mood became, the more restless his spirit became. Chaos began to palpably in the room. Champagne glasses began to shake and fall off the shelves behind the bar. The band's guitar player started to shred his guitar strings furiously, and the drummer, trying to keep up with the impromptu solo, broke one of his sticks, striking a cymbal. An underage girl with a fake ID grew paranoid and started an argument with her date. An old man wearing a fedora and sitting in a corner began to weep. A group of college kids playing a game of pool started yelling boisterously. The lights flickered on and off. The entire room had turned into a state of unrest. Coyote took a sip of ice water to cool himself down and breathe deeply. Then, just as suddenly, the glasses stopped shaking, the band returned to its usual rhythm, and the din of overzealous emotions dissipated. Wow, that was spectacular. Coyote turned to see Destiny standing beside him. I thought that there had been an earthquake, she said. You have a much further reach than this bar. That's a lot of power. He finished drinking his water and then took a sip of whiskey. He was still glowering, but he forced himself to talk. Useless power these days, he said miserably. It used to matter more. Why are you here? Destiny ignored his tone. I just got back from an important trip. I can help you, Coyote. Don't act like you know me well enough to guess at my problems. She drew herself up so that she appeared very tall. Her gray eyes flashed metallic. Every year, my sisters and I break from spinning faiths to attend a convention for supernatural archetypes and deities of all cultures. It's invite only. Like the powwows where the animal spirits gather among the tribes in summer, this convention is very different. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but I will tell you it's innovational and educational. We discover what obstacles which other archetypes like us face and how to overcome them. It's a place of deep magic. I had a chance to consult with the oracle. Coyote was impressed by that, but he was determined not to show it. What if I told you I had a solution for your inner conflict? Destiny asked. I'm not in the mood for false positivity. You may call yourself Destiny. Hell, you may even be Destiny, he declared. But I accept my life and my fate. I take responsibility for every stupid mistake I ever made that hurt humankind and those I love the most. Dance with me, Destiny said in a soft, lilting tone that sounded like an accompaniment to the song the band was playing. Coyote couldn't resist. Upon embracing her, he was struck again by her presence. She was a calm, graceful, powerful force who moved without a misstep, perfectly to the music as he twirled her around. I can assure you that I'm as real as you are, she declared. Coyote thought about how real he had been at the beginning of everything when the Creator assigned him tasks and proclaimed him a transformer. He remembered how he was welcomed and worshipped by the tribes, both in his human and coyote forms. His adventures and the morals and lessons learned through them became legendary, told aloud by fires at night, and later written down in books. He thought about how Destiny had many guises. To the Greeks and Romans, the Morai weaved the threads of fate. Were the Morai Destiny's sisters? He decided he preferred not to know. He believed individuals could shape their own lives, while others believed the higher powers did so. I'm offering you a choice, Destiny said. Why would you do that? Because I like you and want nothing more than to see you return to your former glory and power. I told you that we met before, but I've really just been observing you from the sidelines for most of your existence. You sound like a stalker, Coyote laughed uneasily. At the conference, I obtained some nepenthe, a rare Egyptian elixir that cures sorrow. It's also known as the drug of forgetfulness. I know what it is. Well, I'm offering it to you as a way to ease your spirit. Every mistake you've made that haunts you and every heartbreak you've experienced can be erased. You'll remember the important things you've done, but you won't feel the level of pain that you're dealing with now. What I'm offering you is renewed hope. What's the catch? He asked. I'm asking for permission to access all your stories located in the library of your mind and download them before you take the elixir. Coyote stopped dancing and let go of Destiny's hand. The band continued to play as he stormed back to the bar, with her following closely behind him. Bartender, another whiskey on the rocks, he barked. Coyote, I mean no offense. Don't be angry. It's a fair enough request. Your stories should be archived, regardless of whether you want to forget about them or not. He knew his experiences had shaped him. Even though he was sometimes despondent, he was not altogether unhappy with who he was. What would be the result if I did agree to this? He asked. You would feel like you once did centuries ago when you were excited about the possibilities. I'm wiser now, he objected. I know too many things I wouldn't want to forget. Well, what if I offered you one drop of nepenthe to remove only the most painful memory in exchange for one story? Do I get to choose the memory in the story? Elixirs don't work that way, Destiny protested. Once you ingest it, the magic takes over and decides for you. Are you trying to repair me emotionally before you ask me out on a date? Because that would make sense. Otherwise, this is crazy talk. Destiny looked hurt. I'm just trying to help you. Coyote looked around the crowded room. He thought he could discern some shadow people, silent monitoring the exchange, with Cordelia among them. Her eyes were pleading. Don't ever let me go, she seemed to whisper. Coyote's life flashed before his eyes like scenes in a film. He became paranoid, wondering if Destiny had already slipped the elixir into his drink, taking the choice away from him. He didn't trust her. He ran outside. His hearing was sharp and he began picking up the voices of other animal spirits. Wolf, badger, fox, killer whale, eagle, thunderbird. We have not abandoned you, they insisted. All you have to do is summon us and we will appear. We have the same memories and degree of suffering from our decisions and actions. Together we will commiserate and heal. Destiny followed him outside. In the moonlight, she was another species altogether. In that moment, Coyote made his final decision. No dice, he said. I don't want what you're offering. I'm fine just the way I am. Then I'll be damned if I'm going to let anybody convince me otherwise. He could feel Cordelia, the shadow people, and his animal spirit friends and rivals surrounding him with supernatural accolades for not forsaking their memory. With the realization that he was still relevant, Coyote felt a weight lift off his heavy heart. Then there is nothing left to discuss. Destiny vanished as quickly as she had appeared. He did not ever expect to see her again. He continued walking, letting his memories run wild and free with a full range of emotions. For the first time in a while, he was genuinely happy. Overall, this is a pretty good story, he said aloud, vowing to write it down that very evening while it was still fresh in his mind. I still have a few good adventures left in me.
Thank you, Andrea. That's such a beautiful story.
Thank you.
I love how they all came together at the end to show him support and how he decided not to forget those memories, even though they were painful, they were still important to him, right?
Definitely.
Very lovely.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But I think I think that, you know, most of us would keep the memories and not want to forget.
Yes, because they shape you. They make you who you are, right?
Exactly.
It's a part of life. You have to suffer and change and become who you're becoming. So, listeners, that was just one of many short stories in Modern Natives by Andrea Grant. If you're interested in getting this book, Andrea, can you tell us where to find it?
Yes, it is available on Amazon. So if you search Modern Natives, you'll see the cover with the wolves and everything, and you'll know that that's the book. It's also available through a shop on my website, AndreaGrant.com.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll add that in the write up afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for joining us, everyone. This has been another episode of Tales of Fae and Folklore.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Thanks for coming.